The reason for the new global conflict on the horizon. Next stage of the Great Reset. Everyone that is conscripted will be needlecrafted. We're at 65% needlecrafted right now, globally, according to the figures. A devastating war such as the one they are creating right now would produce at least 500 million casualties, maybe even a billion, directly or indirectly. Moreover, it will allow the governments of the world to impose more draconian measures and keep them in place fully this time. The previous Hobgoblin crisis was merely a stage of conditioning. This is to further reinforce that initial conditioning and ensure it remains permanent. Of course, China will invade Taiwan after this. Israel is bombing Syria as we speak. Moldova and Georgia and Ukraine as well are wishing to join the EU, of which that is problematic for a number of reasons. A complex series of alliances are being fashioned right now to act in such a way as to create the pretext for a coming conflict. You can see it a mile off. Like the last two global conflicts, Arnold Toynbee wrote once, and I tend to agree with it as I echoed a similar sentiment within my book, that, quote, "Civilizations are not murdered, they commit suicide," unquote. The clown world of the West, drunk on their own self-importance, embroiled in the delusion of their sophisticated decadence and amoral superiority, will seek war, inevitably so. Hell, even the left-wing progressives seem to be dying for a war. Couple that with the knowledge of the needlecraft, and behold the pun of the century. Everything is the inverse of what it should be. The left are beating the war drums, while the right, for the most part, seem to be urging diplomacy. We only have to look at the utter insanity of the Twilight Zone episode that we find ourselves nightmarishly a part of, to know that this civilization's days are numbered, and NPCs are welcoming, nay embracing, their own destruction. It reminds me very much of the Calhoun mice experiment, which I included in my book too. I think in the next 8 to 10 years, ghost cities shall be ubiquitous, due to the effects of the needlecraft. In fact, it is progressively occurring as we speak, and hence why we have this event right now to generate fire that shall produce a smokescreen to cover for the destruction the needlecraft shall wreak. Ultimately, it is distraction, as well as another change agent crisis event. Prorsus credibilis est, quia ineptum est. It is completely credible because it is unsuitable, or I believe it because it is impossible. Essentially, whatever one thinks logically may happen, then discard that. Occam's razor does not apply to this type of warfare that is being waged against us by the ruling class. Thus, seek out the most ridiculous, absurd, and downright far-fetched narrative you can think of, and then you may be somewhat closer to the truth of what will occur. Thus, quote, "This war is fabricated for the pretext for a global conflict, a meat grinder, to impose a grander pretext for global totalitarianism to take over," unquote, is probably closer to the truth than, quote, "Russia is bloodthirsty and mad, and thus they invaded poor innocent Ukraine. The US and the West help Ukraine. Russia bad, Ukraine good. Slava Ukraini." Interesting times we do live in.